What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for another episode of Player Ratings as we drew with Chelsea 2-2 at Stamford Bridge, which was most definitely a snatch and grab point at the bridge. And let's get into the player ratings. Let's start off with Hugo Lloris, 6s all round from us. Me personally, I mean, we only had 3 shots on target against us throughout the game. The first one was a really good save, forced a really good save out of Hugo Lloris where he palmed it out for a corner. The other 2, I mean, he couldn't do anything with Koulibaly's rocket volley. In terms of the third goal, he did kind of dive under it, Reece James's shot, but it was at kind of like point blank range, and it's really difficult to save those kind of shots. So, I don't know. I'm not going to put Lloris down on that one.
Yeah, I actually thought the save for Havertz's shot in the first half was really impressive. Really got, I think it was with his legs, tipped it. It was a really good strike from Havertz, and he managed to just tip it wide, but they did score from the resulting corner. In terms of the goal Reece James scored from, I would say that in that kind of position, Reece James is so close to goal, he kind of has to guess, doesn't he? It's like a penalty in a way where you have to guess which way he's going to go. And he managed to do it. He went down the centre, kind of called Lloris's
Much harder
bluff.
from a penalty at that range. Huh? Much harder from a penalty than that at that range.
Yeah, so like James kind of called his bluff, went down the centre, and Lloris dived out of the way, but it would have been a great save if he was managed to keep that one out, although it wasn't the best finish from James. But other than that, no shots on target for Chelsea. They were pretty poor in front of goal, actually.
Let's move on to Cuti Romero. Sim gives him a 5. I gave him a 6. Aggressive as always. Our Cuti Romero got in a little bit of a scrap with Cucurella a few times during the game, to be honest. And the thing is with Romero, I felt like he was a bit uncharacteristic of him yesterday, being a bit sloppy in possession. But apart from that, I thought he did defend okay for the most part, and we didn't concede too many shots on target. And I think that was due down to the defensive unit yesterday.
Yeah, I think maybe a 5 was a bit harsh on Romero, but I think he was really good in the tackle. He made a lot of tackles, especially in the wide areas when the ball was coming out wide. And when Romero starts running at you like a bullet train, like you have to just get out of the way. It's absolutely fantastic to see. And that shithousery was brilliant, although he has to be careful with that pulling of the hair, On another day, he gets sent off for that. Yeah. So I think he got a bit of luck there. But I think overall it was a pretty decent display from Romero, but I thought the unit defensively as a whole was not as strong as it could have been.
Let's move on to Eric Dier. 6 from me, 4 from Sim. And I actually felt Dier was our most competent defender on the day. I thought he stood up to the challenge most of all what came our way. I mean, he was dragged out of position for our last goal, but I think that was mainly because of the change in formation, which we know that Dier and both Davies are not really comfortable playing in that in a back 4. So it was difficult for him because I thought that Chelsea were putting him under a lot of pressure, and maybe he did come down a bit to the pressure. But I thought for the most part he was all right. I wouldn't put him down too much.
No, I thought it was poor. I thought Romero was better than him, and I thought Dier struggled with Havertz as well. Not just Havertz's physicality, but also his movement. Something which I thought he might do in the preview. He followed Havertz quite a bit, which created a lot of space down the centre of the pitch, and I feel like he struggled to deal with that quite a bit. On the ball as well, I felt like his passing wasn't particularly great. You could argue that a lot of that was to do with the movement and the physicality of our front 3. But yeah, I think I don't know. I think he struggled with Havertz, to be honest. I think Havertz got the better of him on a few occasions, and I don't think he'll be too happy with his performance yesterday.
Interesting. Let's move on to Ben Davies. Sim gives him a 4. I gave him a 6. On reflection, I'll probably say split in the middle. 5's probably a fair one for this one. But I think with Ben Davies, he was giving endless amounts of problems down that side. Him and Ryan Sessegnon were really, really struggling throughout the game. But then on the other hand, he did provide that pass to Hojbjerg for the goal. He grabbed an assist on the day. So, look, I think that he did struggle down that side, and it probably shows our need for a centre-back that can really stand up to the pressure that Chelsea were presenting us yesterday.
Yeah, I thought Loftus-Cheek and Reece James were giving him no end of trouble down that side, especially when we went to a back 4 in the second half. I thought he really got exposed for how average he can be in that position. So I thought that wasn't totally his fault, because I don't think left back's his position anymore, unfortunately. I just don't think he's that good at it anymore. And the few times he did get forward, forward. Yeah, he did lay off the assist for Hojbjerg, but there was a few times where he could have got to the byline and tried something, but he just wasn't good enough to get past Reece James or Loftus-Cheek. And then going back, he was losing every header, I felt, to Loftus-Cheek. He was being dominated physically, and I felt like he struggled really badly, but most of it, was when we were in a back four. So wasn't his best day. And I don't think he did enough on the ball as well.
No, he didn't. Let's move on to Emerson Royal. 6s all round from us. Let's start off with the good, and then we'll move on to the bad. The good, I thought he stood up to what came his way defensively, and not that much came down his side. The majority did come down the other side where Davies and Sessegnon were. In terms of the bad, I don't think he contributed going forward at all, really, yesterday. And when you're looking at the goal we conceded to Koulibaly, I think he was the closest one to Koulibaly. So potentially he's the one that should be tracking him down and closing him down, because literally nobody closed him down. And I think he was Emerson's man.
I think that set piece, to be honest, was a coaching problem, because we did zonal marking, and if that is the result of the zonal marking, then you've got to put that down to how we're defending set pieces rather than individuals for me. But I think Emerson overall had a decent game. I thought defensively up against Cucurella, he dealt with it pretty well. I think Sterling didn't get too much down that side, and when Mount moved over as well, he had that one shot from the edge of the area, but other than that, wasn't able to get away from Emerson. I thought again physically Emerson was able to get forward, especially in the second half when we moved to 4 at the back. Actually, I thought we got forward pretty well, but he got 3 crosses into the box, and none of them were really hurting Chelsea, unfortunately. So again, got to improve on his delivery, but I thought it was a competent display from Emerson.
Let's move on to Rodrigo Bentancur. Sim gives him a 4. I gave him a 5. I felt he struggled to deal with Chelsea's press in midfield with Kante and Jorginho there. There were some good moments with Bentancur, with some silky moves on the ball early on, but I think for the most part his passing wasn't great, his touch wasn't great, and I just felt like he was getting overrun a little bit in the midfield there with Kante and Jorginho playing really well. But like I said, there were a couple of flashes of niceness from him, but not much.
Yeah, it wasn't totally, his struggles weren't totally his fault. I think the formation again from Chelsea led to him and Hojbjerg being outnumbered in the middle of the park, and it made it a lot easier for Chelsea to deal with those two. But I did feel like I was getting a bit frustrated with Bentancur on occasion, especially that in that moment where was it a foul, was it not a foul, just before the equaliser, which obviously got on the ball, but it all stemmed from a really lazy pass which he made, which was intercepted, and he had to kind of recover it himself. And
he was full of those yesterday.
And and I felt like just yesterday he was a bit lethargic. His passing was not on point. It didn't, again, a few times actually he kind of played a pass blind to no one, and maybe assumed someone was going to be there where the pass was going to be received, and it wasn't there. And that was what was frustrating me yesterday with Bentancur. But yeah, there were some good moments, but it was worrying how kind of when he was put under that much pressure that he buckled a bit in a few occasions, which was frustrating. But I think off the ball, still pretty sound, and I think he still did some good work.
Yeah. Let's move on to Pierre-Emile Hojbjerg. 5 for Sim, 7 for me, actually. I think that Hojbjerg, he's another one that did struggle against Chelsea's midfield and against their press, and Kante was like all over him like a rash at times. But I did think that on the ball, he was found wanting a few times with his loose passing and stuff like that. But you got to say that however much dominated he was in the middle of the park by N'Golo Kante, he provided for us in key moments. Obviously scoring that goal with a brilliant shot that hit the back post, and obviously he put Kane through on goal just before we scored our goal as well. So there were some good moments in there from Hojbjerg, and however bad people are saying Hojbjerg was, he provided some of our best moments for us in the game, so you've got to give him credit for that.
Yeah, definitely. That's why I get a higher mark than Bentancur for me. But I still think for me he struggled quite badly. With Bentancur, when he was passing it blind, that frustrated me. With Hojbjerg, he wasn't passing it blind. He actually knew where the target was, and he still couldn't make it. That was the most frustrating thing. A few times where he had an easy pass on him and he just kind of mishit it or was lacking accuracy, and that was really disappointing from Pierre. But as you say, really great through ball through to Kane. Kane will be disappointed in score that. And then it was a really nice finish for the goal. A really daisy cutter into the far corner. Really difficult for Mendy to stop, and you got to give him a lot of credit for those moments. And I think off the ball as well, he had some really good pressures in the final third as well. So a few times, especially early in the game when we were on top of Chelsea for that opening 5 minutes or so, he was being really aggressive. It looked like he was going to have a good game, but I think we were just outdone tactically in that area, which led to them being... I think their performances were more down to tactical issues than it were down to them personally being bad.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. Moving on to Ryan Sessegnon, Sim gives him a 3, I gave him a 4, and it wasn't a good display from Sess, let's be honest. I mean, he was dominated down that side, really was, by Reece James and Loftus-Cheek. He did get in a good opportunity early on in the game where Kane put it on a plate for him that he couldn't capitalise on. Apart from that, there was nothing to note really going forward from Ryan Sessegnon, unfortunately. Poor defensively and not much offensively.
Yeah, he had a game again a bit like he's a teenager again. You know what I mean? He's 22 now. He can't have games where he's so overawed like this. He has to he should be able to step up in these occasions now, and he's done it before in other big games, but it was disappointing in this one where I was very disappointed with his lack of confidence in himself. I think his defensive ability, he was getting dominated hard by Loftus-Cheek and Reece James down the left-hand side. He had no answer to anything. He did have one chance throughout the game to score, which was a good run, to be fair to him, but the finish lacked conviction. Didn't really feel like he was ever going to score that chance, even though it was a decent chance. And other than that, I don't remember him getting, like Emerson, I can remember a number of occasions he got forward. Sessegnon really struggled in that department to ask serious questions of the Chelsea backline. So look, disappointing for me from Sess.
Do you start Perisic next game?
I would seriously consider it if he's fully fit. Yeah,
me as well. Next up, Dejan Kulusevski. Sib gives him a 5. I gave him a 4. And I felt like he just struggled to get into the game yesterday at all, to be honest. There was a good mark as he won the ball for the goal that we scored, one of our equalisers, and he might get a mark down for losing the ball for the goal we conceded. So it was a bit give and take with Kulusevski in those moments. But I felt apart from that, he was struggling as he was being surrounded by Chelsea players, couldn't really impact the game the way he usually does. So poor display, unfortunately.
Yeah, but I want to get him more involved in the game. I think off the ball, he actually had a pretty decent game. I think the ability to win the ball back a few times off the Chelsea players in the Chelsea half was decent, especially in that opening exchanges. He was looking really sharp and looked like he was going to be in for a really good game, but unfortunately didn't really work out. Didn't work out for Kulusevski. I don't remember many opportunities where he got a shot or a cross in on goal, so he's got to work on that. But Chelsea's back line were nullifying him really impressively, although I did think his touch was decent when he did get the opportunity. We just couldn't make the most of it, so unfortunate for Kula.
Let's move on to Heung-min Son. 4s all round from us, and in the first half he was just completely shackled. I mean, he couldn't get a kick. Reece James was on him like a rash pretty much at all times. And it was a shame because in games like this, we really need our big players to step up, and Sonny was kind of eliminated out the game, especially in that first half. He did have a chance to score, which I thought he should have done better with. But apart from that, I mean, he really was shackled out the game and eventually got taken off.
Yeah, and he lost energy in that second half as well, which was a big reason why I think it took him off. Again, in the early moments, he looked like he was going to have a few chances to score. He had a couple of shots blocked from the edge of the area after being played in from Kane, and it looked like he was going to be causing Chelsea's backline no end of trouble. But they, after that early bit of pressure, they completely shackled him. Every time he got the ball, either Reece James was coming up his backside, or he had 3 men around him. Like he was really struggling to really impact the game. For second half, he started to get a bit more involved. Kane, right at the beginning of the second half, Kane played him for on goal, and he kind of snapped at the shot when a bit more composure may have made that into a better chance right at the beginning of the second half. And then obviously we went to a 4-4-2, and he was getting a bit more space on the left-hand side without really impacting it. I think, for me, actually, Conte made a bit of a mistake, in my opinion. I would have put Son up top and put Richarlison on the left, because I think Richarlison had the energy to get up and down the pitch a bit more than Son did at that time. And I think Son obviously is more of a goal threat for on goal. So that's what I would have done. He put Son on the left and he put Richarlison up top. And Son just ran out of energy. And then when he took him off, it was the right decision.
Last of the starting 11, Harry Kane, 6s all round from us. And it's hard to argue against him being our chief creator on the day. I mean, he did create a number of chances, one for Sessegnon, which he should have done better, one for Son, which we were just talking about, where he should have shown a bit more composure. But it wasn't a classic Harry Kane performance that we've seen in the past. And I think Kane and Son need to step up a bit moving on into the season. It is only second game, so I'm not going to worry too much. But he was on the better side of things, Harry Kane, that's for sure. And scoring that goal at the end, that's what Harry Kane does in London derbies, and ultimately won us the point.
Yeah, and he kept going to the end. I think for me, actually, Kane, it wasn't his best display, but in the few touches he had, he actually did quite a bit. As you say, set up 2 chances, had that chance for on goal, which he really uncharacteristically snatched at. He actually could have taken an extra touch. If he had a bit more composure, but he kind of just snatched at the shot and dragged it wide. Very disappointing from him, but he obviously did get the goal right at the end, making sure that we came away with something, and it was a good header from a corner as well. So I think he could have done a bit more. But I think all things considered, with the amount of touches he did have on the ball, he actually did pretty well. So fair play to him.
He made the most out of the majority of his touches, didn't he? Let's move on to the substitutes. Richarlison, who came on for Sessegnon with around half an hour to go as we moved to a 4-4-2. I gave him a 7. Sim gives him a 6. And I just felt like he gave us that intensity and drive forward that we were desperately needing, that Sonny wasn't really doing because he was just too shackled. Kulusevski wasn't really doing either. And I thought Richarlison just came on, added that extra energy, was running at the defence, was making Chelsea defence think a little bit more than we were making them do beforehand. So that's why I gave him a 7.
Yeah, I mean, I think he had a good impact. I was pretty happy with the way he brought that energy to the front line, and then all of a sudden we were pressing a lot more, and he gave Chelsea a lot more to think about. I would like to have seen a bit more of him in the final third, like getting shots off and things like that. I don't think he was able to do that, unfortunately, but he was definitely a nuisance. It was definitely difficult for Chelsea to play against. And he was working super hard to try help us get a point, so I'm going to give him credit for that.
Let's move on to Yves Bissouma. Sim gives him a 6. I gave him a 7. Yeah, you're probably right. On reflection, 6 is more fair for this one. But I think that he as well added a bit more energy into the midfield. He was trying to drive us forward at times as well. And he was the one that took that shot that got deflected out for the corner that started all those corners that we eventually did score from. And the first one we nearly scored from as well. So there was not too much in there to note from Bissouma, but from what I saw was positive.
Yeah, he added a bit of calmness in the centre. Now, a few moments where he was able to skip past a Chelsea player and drive forward and have that bit more energy in the centre of the park, which was needed. But again, I didn't see him force the issue enough. I didn't see many switches of play or maybe intricate passes in between the lines and things like that, which obviously you could argue isn't his role. But when we need a goal and we know the quality he has, maybe he could start implementing that in his game. So I think he did have a good cameo, but I didn't think it was anything special, but I think it was a decent cameo.
Let's move on to the last player we're going to rate in Ivan Perisic. 6s all round from us. And I felt that, he was always looking to get on the ball, always looking to drive forward. There were a couple of times where he did lose the ball, trying to take on his man, but ultimately it was his quality that got us back into the game. The first corner, Ben Davies, really good ball to Ben Davies where Mendy was equal to it, and then he gets another corner straight away, and that's right on Harry Kane's head, and it's a goal. Yeah, you can probably question poor defending from Chelsea, but it were 2 beautiful deliveries, and that's what we've been missing from these set pieces for so long. Someone that could just put it on a plate for someone, and that's exactly what he did twice in the time that he was on the pitch.
Yeah, and when he came on, he actually gave us a bit more threat on the wings as well. I think he started to pin Reece James back a bit more. I think Reece James was contained him pretty well in open play, and he wasn't really able to get too many crosses into the box, but at least he forced Reece James to be there, whereas before Reece James have had a free rein down that side. And as you say, his set pieces got us the point. He took one with his right foot on the left-hand side after Kane was fouled, and that was a good free kick, but that was just about headed out. Then he took two with the two corners with his left foot, one of them obviously saved by a header from Dier, I think it was. Tipped over the bar, and then the goal. So have to give him credit. Apparently it was Dier, which I was looking. So you have to give him credit for putting those pinpoint crosses in like consistently, which we've definitely haven't had. And it's so good having such a good two-footed player who can take set pieces with both feet. I think that's vital because clearly, judging from the set pieces yesterday, we want to have more in-swinging set pieces, because you saw as well Son took one with his left foot as well because it was an in-swinger. And I
much prefer in-swingers anyway. They always seem much more dangerous.
I agree. So maybe that's under Gianni Vaio's instruction, which could be interesting for the remainder of the season. And
actually, when you look at it, Gianni Vaio's come in. We've had 2 games in the Premier League. I know in the first game it wasn't directly from a corner, but it kind of was. And the second game we've scored from a corner as well. So set pieces are improving.
I think we look really a lot better at set pieces now. Even in the first 2 games, you've got to remember as well, when we used to take short corners, they used to come to nothing, but now we're actually making something of them, which is good.
Yeah. And last but not least, Antonio Conte, 6s all round from us. I felt like he was outdone by Thomas Tuchel on the day tactically, but you do have to give him credit for changing. If I was him, I probably would have changed things at half-time, and I put him down for that, for not changing it earlier than he did. But ultimately, he did change it midway through the second half. That did ultimately get us that goal as well, to get us back into the game, but didn't change it back quick enough, and that let Chelsea back in and get the lead. But then we ultimately went up the other end and scored with impact from the substitutes. So it's a bit of give and take from Antonio this weekend.
Yeah, I was disappointed, to be honest, in that he didn't have a plan for how we knew Chelsea could very well set up against us, due to the fact they set up in a very similar way back in January last season in that hybrid system. I would have thought Conte would be more ready for it. He wasn't, and we were outdone fairly comfortably in the first half, albeit though we didn't concede too many high quality chances. It was more about on the ball. We didn't have many attacks whatsoever. He did correctly change it on the hour mark, or just before the hour, bring on Richarlison, and that really affected the team positively. But Tuchel seemed to be one step ahead of him throughout the whole game, which was quite annoying. And Tuchel made another change. We got exposed again in a different way, and he got a bit unlucky because we were just about to change it before they scored again. So I will say that I'll take that. I won't mark him too badly due to that, but I would say that he'll be disappointed that Tuchel was able to get the better of him. But look, we did stay in the game, and I think he gave the team confidence to go right to the very end, as he always does, and we nabbed the draw. And also, I've got to give him a mark for how he dealt with Tuchel as well at the end. 100%,
Absolutely,
got to give him a mark for that.
Yeah, and it's you've got to mark Conte as well. I know what you said, the team and the never say die attitude and the mentality, coming in this squad now, and you're looking at Conte managing a team that really didn't play well in a ground which historically we don't do well, and we come away with a point. So I think he's got to take some credit for that.
Yeah, 100%.
So that is the player ratings for our 2-2 draw at Chelsea. 5 takeaways still to come. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Like, subscribe and comment, and as always, come on you Spurs.